Last week, Dementia's Platform UK, along with the AI Risk Evaluation Group, hosted a synthetic data workshop to bring together data providers, researchers, and public members to discuss the role of synthetic data in sensitive healthcare datasets. Now, in this workshop, we were mainly concerned about privacy protection in synthetic data and how we can generate and evaluate synthetic data for privacy purposes. Now, the purposes discussed in the synthetic data workshop were mainly around researcher training, algorithm development, using it for federated queries, and even for deploying safe AI models. Now, depending on the purpose that we want to use the synthetic data, we may have to generate a different fidelity level for that data. So for things like researcher training or algorithm development, we may require lower levels of fidelity of data, where we're more concerned about privacy and less so about the utility. But if we're using synthetic data in AI models, then we want a higher utility because we don't want that performance to be affected within that model development. So depending on these purposes, we discussed that we require different levels of fidelity depending on the context. Now, in these lower fidelity contexts for synthetic data, it was determined that we don't actually have to use synthetic data. We can create artificial data based on publicly accessible metadata about that dataset. So if we know the range of values that exist for a feature, what the data type is for the feature column, and what the completeness is, all of which we have within DeepUK, then we can use this metadata information to be able to generate artificial samples by drawing random data points from the range of values according to the specific data type, so that we have the structure of the data which can be used for these purposes of algorithm development or testing code before you actually have access to the real datasets. In the higher fidelity contexts, such as training safe AI models, it was determined that because we needed a high utility, we can use synthetic data generation methods with differentially private guarantees to ensure that we remain and keep that utility of the dataset, but ensure that there's privacy protection of the individuals within that as well. When it comes to the evaluation of these synthetic datasets, it was discussed how there's no consensus on how we should evaluate these datasets and what thresholds we should be using for the specific scores. So when we're generating these datasets, we really need to be able to interpret these results in a way which is robust and reliable. For evaluating privacy in synthetic datasets, we can use the GDPR anonymization principles of singling out, inference, and linkability to be able to determine the privacy risks of that synthetic data. Now, when we have the metric results from these evaluations, we should be able to show these on a spectrum where we know roughly about what the low and high values would typically be for that metric, and we can show that value on that spectrum so that we can have easy interpretation of this result in context of whether it may be a high privacy concern or low privacy concern. It was also established that we need a common standardized framework for being able to document the generation and evaluation process so that we can ensure that it's as transparent as possible and we know exactly how that synthetic data was created. This is crucial to be able to provide data providers with adequate information to be able to determine the risk of releasing a synthetic version of their dataset. The results of this first workshop has been really beneficial to be able to build the foundational work of how we can develop guidance in synthetic data. You can read the report in the link provided and join up to the synthetic data group, and we hope to continue this work and explore these points in further detail, and we hope that you'll join us with the discussions and collaboration involved with that.